You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller. Hello, and welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I'm Stephen Seagraves, joined by the full crew this week. Seth Miller, Fosma Moon. Gentlemen.
Foz is back.
He's back.
After my long hiatus.
Hey, we really
like
did
2 or
miss
3
you.
weeks.
Yeah, I miss you in LA.
If I could have made it work, I would have. I apologize.
No, it's fine. It would have been a lot of fun. We had a good time.
Next year.
Yeah. So Seth, you took a trip, and you got to go through the new DCA terminal coming back from LA.
From Dorkfest last week, yeah. And spot LAX. So I, not on purpose or not as originally planned. My original plan was to fly Burbank to Phoenix to Boston and get home at a reasonable hour and, take the bus home from Boston like I always do. I got a call when I got home from Germany. I was chatting with my wife on the Thursday prior, and she mentioned that she wouldn't be able to pick me up at the bus station because she was hanging out with friends on Monday night. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, okay, I'll just get a car home. No big deal. I've done it before. And, find dinner on my own and whatever. It's like, well, the reason I'm hanging out so late with my friends is we have an 8:30 dinner reservation. So if you can get to, where we're at by 8:30, you can come to dinner with us instead. And since the flight I originally had would probably gotten me in about an hour too late, or might have gotten me there on time, but was just, it was a little risky and a few extra hops along the way. But I was able to switch to a LADC Portland, Maine, and they were having dinner on the coast in Maine. So sort of halfway between Portsmouth and Portland. And so that timing worked out very nicely. I actually ended up about a half hour early in the end. So, but yes, it also meant I got to see the new terminal at LAX. This is the, I guess, 10 or 12 express gates for American.
You mean DCA?
Yeah.
You said LAX, sorry.
Oh, sorry, no, DCA.
Yep.
My bad. Just a side note, LAX international terminal T-bit right now, not a great departure experience. Certainly at 7 o'clock in the morning, nothing was like, the Starbucks was open and one other kiosk. It was desperate in so many ways. As I noted, I couldn't even buy the $18 scrambled eggs I really wanted.
Is that where your flight left out of, was T-bit?
My flight was, there's like 3 flights that leave out of T-bit in the morning domestically for some stupid reason.
Really?
On AA?
Yeah, mine was AA. I think there was a Delta departure also. And like you'd think like DCLA is sort of a premium route.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it's in T-bit normally. I don't know, but like that was a bad experience. Really bad.
Huh.
And also but I had to check in and I had to go through, I actually went through security in, I guess, T4, and then like had to walk the connector back up and across. So it was like, it took a while. And I also tried to put my JetBlue number on my American Airlines ticket, and that took over an hour to sort through.
Jeez.
Why did that take so long?
So part of it is my fault. I have status in both programs, and as a gold, actually my DC to Portland, Maine upgrade cleared using the E500s or whatever, but I decided to forego that in favor of crediting it to JetBlue. So I'll actually have Mosaic next year because having one is better, and I'm not going to have American Gold. I don't have enough spend on that side. So, in order to do that, they had to, and the good news is their systems are bad news, depending on which side you're from. The systems caught that, and it, wouldn't let them switch it out while I still had things from my American status in the reservation. And they just like, well, I have to downgrade you after they finally called in the help desk and figured that out. I was like, sure, I'll take the downgrade. And as soon as they downgraded me, the downgrade included taking me out of my assigned seats because preferred seats are considered a upgrade in their promise. And they put me in a middle seat for the transcon. And I about lost my mind. And I was like, my old seat is still open. Just put me back in it. Oh, well, I said I was going to downgrade. I'm like, no, you said you were going to downgrade the Portland segment. And I did not agree to a middle seat. And like, I was starting to get upset. No yelling, fortunately, but eventually she walked away for a little bit and came back. She's like, and like to the point, like she was gone long enough that one of the other agents that was like handling the line came over and like, what are you standing around for? I'm like, I'm waiting for your colleague to fix things that they broke. Eventually she came back. She's like, they put me in an exit row window instead. So nice enough, I guess. I didn't need that. I didn't need the exit row, but they gave me even more space or even more legroom seat and whatever. Main cabin extra. All right, got to get the right branding on it. But anyway, the DCA terminal. So then I flew a transcon to DCA. It was fine. No food to purchase on board, really. So really? On American, yeah.
Wow.
Even on a transcon. So that was unfortunate. A couple, I don't know, I have a pack of pretzels or something. It was not a great dining experience. And then eventually got to DC. It was like 2 p.m. local time by the time we landed. So grabbed a quick snack. I actually walked over to, and I was fortunate that I was in the right gate area on the American side that it was like, I guess the old C pier.
You didn't have to take the bus?
So I didn't have to take the bus to connect to get over there. Because right now, only the old C pier is connected to is connected to the new extension. And soonish, that will all be inside a common security area, but the security is still, that new security checkpoint is still being built out, so they're not ready to sort of move it around. But eventually the big arched hallway with the big flag hanging and all that stuff, that's all going to be inside security rather than outside.
Oh, so is that what they're doing? Because
all those piers are going to be connected inside security.
So when I was flying through there, I was like, oh, this is interesting, because they had a lot of stuff like they had like temporary walls up.
Yeah.
At DCA.
And so it's temporary walls to help build the security section. And like, it's going to use some of the space in like the walkways back and forth to the metro.
Mm-hmm.
That's why like those are sort of marked off, and they built out around extra, like across the roadway and everything.
Yep.
And then if you actually go into the Great Hall or whatever they call it there, that's like where it used to be open to get from above down, and like there were stairwells and elevators down, whatever. They've put up netting to prevent, foreign objects from coming through and all sorts of things like that. So it's a real interesting job. They've done a spectacular job sort of keeping everything running during the construction process without much interruption. And they did a soft opening of the gates a little while back. It's earlier this summer, I guess, maybe May, something like that. And their official opening is coming soon. So I walked over and decided I'd try one of the new concessions over there for lunch. Nothing over there is open. Like there's a Hudson News equivalent. It's not Hudson News, but there's like the newsstand is open. Maybe one other thing, but nothing food wise really. So I walked all the way back over, grabbed some bao from Bow Wow, BAOWAW. Terrible name. Pretty bad bao too. I was not impressed. No sauce dipping. It was not a great experience. But anyway, it's a little bit of a walk to get over there. Got a nice moving sidewalk, whatever. Big wide concourse though. It's like the same width as the main sort of Great Hall area. So it's that huge open space idea. Really nice when you turn the corner and come into the actual sort of terminal section where all the gates are. Again, nice high ceilings, good windows. They sort of tried these like Jeffersonian domes to try to sort of match some of the architecture of the rest of the space. I think as Ned Russell commented to me when I made a note about them, they're sort of Jeffersonian domes on a budget. They don't look great inside. They're sort of weirdly, they look like flat edges inside, not rounded.
Oh yes, so you don't get the effect.
You don't get the dome effect really. You get a weird like, why is the ceiling different here? But lots of different seating. There's some rocking chairs over there with like or easy chairs with leg rests. If you walk all the way to the corner, there's actually great visibility out of the river visual approach. So you can watch the planes coming through right as they pass in front of the Washington Monument and then curve around to land.
That's awesome.
I had let me check here. So it's in front. I had a 150 millimeter lens with a 1.5x crop factor on my camera. You probably want a tiny bit more than that to get a good zoom, but I got some decent pictures out of it. So
sweet.
I stood there for about a half hour, just grabbed. It was funny. I also got to see Marine One. I got to see the trio of helicopters come up from Andrews. I assume Andrews. Two of them broke off. One landed on the South Lawn, picked up the president, and then went back. He was on his way to New York City, I guess, for the UN General Assembly speech. So, planes continued to land until he was on board, at which point all of a sudden everything scrambled.
And just stopped.
Well, everybody sort of started looping around and sort of, quote unquote missed approaches. But no one ever got close to DCA until he was cleared. It's like a 15-minute flight or whatever, 10-minute flight. So there's that like few minutes and then everything resequenced. And good news, bad news. As they resequenced, I got like Southwest 737, 700, 800, then MAX in succession. Like odds of that coming in, I mean, even with the resequencing, not so high, but it was funny to see like the three of those just in order. And a couple of Alaska planes because it was like sort of transcon arrival time. Delta 321, a bunch of E-75s. It was it's pretty cool. Yeah, seeing I got a shot actually of like one of the planes finally landing with the Washington Monument in the background and like the trio of helicopters headed the other direction. It was pretty cool to see that juxtaposition. So.
I gotta say, DCA, I do like it. I think putting everything behind security is going to just make it that much better of an airport. Like it is probably the best close-in airport I can think of. Yeah,
the only thing that won't be inside security is the old A Banjo way down at the end.
Yep, which is Southwest and Spirit, and
I don't remember who uses it anymore. Yeah,
but so they're disconnecting it from the main terminal then.
So it was. There's still a walkway, but it's outside security because of the
That's right.
offices and everything else.
You could never get to the banjo from
behind security. I just remember there's a walkway that has glass that go that
right, but only to where the old President's Club. I'm sure, I guess the existing United Club is still, if it's reopened yet, but where the old President's Club was. That glass is all still there and whatnot, and that's all still in the same secured space, or will be. But to get past that all the way down to the banjo, you've got to go outside security. There's a giant meeting room / catering hall, which is gorgeous space in between.
Who's in the banjo at this point?
Steven just said Southwest.
I think it's Southwest and Spirit, and I think I saw Frontier there. I walked by it the other day when I was there, and
I don't know.
Low cost carriers, really.
But I think JetBlue moved out at one point. Yeah, JetBlue moved back over to the BC Pier.
Yep.
Air Canada, Frontier, and Southwest is what the website lists.
There we go. Okay, so not Spirit.
Yeah. Does Spirit fly to?
I thought they did, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just imagining seeing a plane painted like a highlighter.
Nightmares again?
Yeah, nightmares, exactly. So let's talk, speaking of AA, right? AA and Gall are partnering up, joining forces?
More tightly partnering. American is investing in like a 5% stake. So similar to the JetSmart deal over in Argentina or in Chile, or Chile, I guess, was JetSmart. Again, trying to taking an ownership stake, proposing a significant improvement in the loyalty cooperation. And I swear at this point, that's the key for all of these deals, is that they're trying to make those things more significant, the loyalty relationships more significant. So
hopefully they got a better deal than Delta did with LATAM.
Yeah. Listen, it's just a couple $1 billion that vanished into thin air. What's the big deal?
Trump change.
Hopefully this one works out better than that. I mean, or, than any of Etihad's investments, as long as we're keeping track. But there have been, from time to time, the occasional airline sort of partnership investments that have worked out.
I love how that was like a subtle, like you just kind of just dropped it and moved on with the comment about Etihad. I don't need to pour salt in that wound and squeeze some lemon juice on top. Everybody knows how bad it was. Oh man. So infecting me is this latest news from Finnair, and actually Eurowings has some part in it too. But there's some operations starting for Finnair and Eurowings in Stockholm, and they're moving some of those ops from Helsinki for Finnair, and for Eurowings, I think they're moving some of it from Germany, maybe, or are they? Just
I'm not sure if it's moving or just as they resume service. So Eurowings is opening a crew base in Stockholm. I don't think Finnair is opening a base, but as part of their sort of winter schedule, Finnair is going to fly nonstop Stockholm to Miami and JFK, or Miami and LA. All three.
Miami. Well, I know LA is on there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a interesting move. Right. There's limited long haul competition right now. SAS is still operating, but Norwegian long haul is gone, and Norse Atlantic, Norwegian 2.0 or 3.0, whatever, is not going to start operating until next spring. So there theoretically is an opportunity there. I'm not sure how much demand there is. Miami, Los Angeles, JFK are the three routes. And Chicago to Helsinki becomes year round instead of summer only.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how much demand there is, right? Those were markets that even before COVID, the Scandinavian long-haul markets were routes that Norwegian was exiting, claiming that, they couldn't make them work. So I'm not sure why or how Finnair is going to make them work better, but they seem to think they can.
Yeah, I mean...
and you got screwed because you lost the flight on your day, right? They moved one of yours to the wrong city?
Yeah, well, they didn't even move the flight. They just said, we're going to,
they didn't change, not your reservation, but the plane that you were supposed to be on from Helsinki is now departing from Stockholm.
Yeah. So I was doing Helsinki LAX, and I think it's now doing Stockholm LAX, and they moved my flight up a day earlier, which seems that's like a really odd way of handling it. Like, oh, we'll just put him a day earlier. He won't mind. Like, what logic in doing this is like, that'll be fine. Like a day later, I could see, but a day earlier.
Well, it's not like someone sits there and consciously does it. It's just there's a system that just says what's the closest available flight with the next hours.
Yeah, but I mean, this is programmatic, right? So if it's day -1, don't do it.
You're bringing logic back into the airline sector.
I know I'm asking too much. Like
this coming from the sector that was very excited they introduced a shopping cart.
Oh, yeah. Can we talk about that real quick? Let's talk about this. So United came out with an update for their app, and it said now introducing a shopping cart. One, it's not really a shopping cart because you don't like put things in it. It's just like a history of what you've searched before.
So that's search history, not a shopping cart.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like a spelled out feature on their latest update.
It was the only feature in their latest update.
It's I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to stay relevant and remind people that they have an app. I don't know.
Wait. Here, this is the official verbiage. Big news. We've added a shopping cart. Other highlights in this release include, there was something else, but the only thing they talked about was a shopping cart.
What was the other thing?
I don't know. Let me go see. What does the App Store say?
But I still don't understand how a list of your saved searches or recent searches is a shopping cart.
I know. This is what gave me a headache when he sent the photo to me.
Okay.
The ability to add your profile photo to the My United section of the app.
Ooh. Why?
Easier access to all the info you need to know about your connection after you check in.
I actually saw that. I'm assuming it's the newer version. I haven't flown United a lot lately. On my connection last weekend, I flew Manchester, New Hampshire to Dulles to Ithaca, New York, and saw some of the connection stuff on the app. And it was actually mildly useful. I mean, my connection was from the plane to the same plane, so I didn't have to go very far.
Convenient.
But they did make me get out for the hour, so there was that.
You should have been like, "Can I just stay?" Like,
I'm just going to sit in the row ahead here. Can I just chill? Like, I'll get out of the way when they can I watch them scrub it down that they're not actually going to do very well? That'd be cool.
Oh man,
when did they start Manchester Dulles? I didn't even know they did that.
It restarted, restarted not long ago, and someone asked me about it. I was like, I'm never going to use that, but that's cool to know. And then, literally last minute, I think I bought the tickets on Tuesday or Wednesday for a Friday or for a Saturday departure. Realized I needed to go to Ithaca, and that routing worked. So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
Was it full?
100% full on the Manchester Dulles flight, and 5 empties on the Dulles to Ithaca on a Saturday morning, both on a CRJ 200. So,
wow. Satan's Chariot's getting a lot of work.
Yeah, it was great.
It's too much time in the CR2.
Yes, it was.
All right, let's talk about the relaxed U.S. entry rules. So, I guess coming November. Is that the right date?
Ish. Early November is the target, I believe, is the current position. I don't believe a formal date is around.
Yeah. So we're reopening the United States borders to certain travelers, those vaccinated. And then those.
So that's an interesting bit. So it's reopening in many ways, but it's a significant change in rules right now, because previously unvaccinated with a negative test could come in from many countries, excluding China, Brazil, and most of Europe.
Yep.
Now so unvaccinated people from all those other places now cannot come in, but if you are vaccinated and test negative, you can.
Yep.
And then they've added the other countries back in. So that's a weird twist to the rules.
Yeah, and is this reciprocity in your mind? Is it reciprocity in your mind, or is it more kind of like we're just trying to come up with something that's going to work to reopen the border, and this is the first step in that?
I'd say more the latter. It's sort of reciprocating to Europe, but who mostly opened up to the United States. But by insisting on vaccinated only, where European countries the EU had previously said, we'll let Americans in just with a test, and then after, just a couple weeks ago, after the U.S. still didn't keep opening up, said, okay, fine, never mind. Unvaccinated Americans are now considered high risk.
Yep.
I think it's, so it's sort of playing that game, but also trying to recover a little bit. One could argue that vaccinated was also, say, 4 months ago, and what were they waiting for? But
yeah, and what are they waiting for now?
And what are they waiting for now?
Yeah.
Right? It actually caused one of the major trade shows for my small section of the airline industry to get postponed. 6 weeks?
Oh, really?
I was supposed to have a conference October 18, 19, 20, and it's now going to be December 2, 3, 4.
Because of the rules and more people can come in?
Well, mostly because a whole bunch of the people managing the sort of, the educational sessions day and all the interviews and all that stuff was a BBC news team. And they all applied for the exemption letters and all got denied.
God.
Oops.
So and then it wasn't going to open fast enough. And so, oops.
Wow.
But yeah, so, I mean, it makes sense for the conference to do that. I'm a little disappointed because the timing of it conflicts with another conference in London. So, and I can't be and I'm presenting at that one. I'm moderating a session, and I can't be in two places at the same time. So
yeah. I will go in your stead.
Okay, I get that set up. You want to hang out in Long Beach for a couple of days?
Sure. Yeah, Long Beach is okay, I guess. So along these same lines, though, China's still not open, right?
Correct.
Brazil's not really open.
I thought Brazil was. I mean, people I know have visited.
Okay, so maybe I'm not up to date. But so, I mean, my point really is like there's still these like disjointed what's open, what's not open rules.
Yeah, I mean, in India is a great example of like it's sort of open, but the border is sort of open, but the flights are terribly limited.
Mm-hmm.
Like international flight services only basically being offered on a nation by nation reciprocity basis. Where like if your country will let us in, then we'll let you in, and then the government will only allow a certain number of flights, and it's only for people flying between the two countries and no onward connections and crazy things like that.
Wow. Crazy. And as part of this, KLM has restored their Las Vegas and Miami flight?
They put them back on the schedule. And this was a great one. Like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, they're like, oh, well, the border's not reopening anytime soon. We're canceling Las Vegas, Miami, and Orlando. They're no longer going to operate this winter. And then this news came out that the border's going to, that the U.S. is changing its rules or whatever. And they're like, oh, we will relaunch those routes in November, December. I don't remember exactly when. But, enough time to sell them, but not the Orlando route, which is, I guess, not that surprising. I don't know.
I mean, that's surprising to me, right? Most of the Vegas traffic is generally driven by conferences. So I don't know if the conference business has returned, but Disney's open.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised given the Disney demand. Obviously, the Miami demand is, South Beach, winter. There's some, that's a popular destination. Lufthansa used to fly a ton of traffic in there, too. So I get that. I'm not sure that from Europe, Las Vegas is as much conference traffic as it is a decent amount of just leisure. I mean, think about just the Virgin Atlantic packages that they sell in huge volume out there.
No, I get that, but there's a lot of shows that only happen in Vegas, right? A lot of corporate events.
I know that's part of it. I'm wondering from the Europe, how much of that is European versus American demand.
I mean, some of the bigger ones, you'll definitely get a fair bit of Europeans.
Yeah. Global events are global. But.
I think the Vegas stuff is kind of the winter escape piece again. I think it's kind of like South Beach a little bit, right? Like there's people who go to the desert or do whatever outdoor sporting that you can do outside of Vegas. So it's interesting though. I'm glad they brought it back. I mean, maybe they'll have demand for it. I don't know. I still don't see travel picking up by the end of this year. So, what?
Narita had to close the runway on what day was this? Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
No, Friday. I'm sorry, Friday morning for about 15 minutes. Yeah. There was a turtle on the runway.
Oops.
Dark green, about 4.5 pounds, foot long.
Is that what the pilot reported?
they went out and picked it up.
I know. The pilot call it in. It looks like he's 4 pounds.
A pilot did call it in, though. 5 departing flights were delayed less than 15 minutes. One of them, this is spectacular. One of them was the ANA A380 that has the turtle.
Where are they flying that now?
Okinawa, believe it or not.
Well, I guess that makes sense. It's a touristy holiday destination.
Yeah, but I was surprised to see that too. But yeah,
that's crazy.
Anyways, sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm
random news that came across while I'm recording.
I didn't realize Okinawa could take an A380. Fascinating. Let's talk about some other fascinating stuff. Northern Pacific Airlines, which, if our listeners remember, is the airline in Alaska that is the parent company of Raven.
Same parent company as Raven, yeah. Corvus is the name of the parent company.
And they announced they wanted to start flights across the Pacific, connecting the United States and North America to Pacific destinations, and they wanted to do it with 757s. And they bought their first 757s.
6 of them.
I did not think it was going to happen. I was wrong.
Apparently.
Well, just because they've bought the planes doesn't mean they're going to do it.
Yeah, they're still not on the operating certificate. They still don't have, many other things. But the goal is 12 frames by the time they launch. Some point next year. The first 6 are old American birds.
Interesting.
So it'll be real interesting to see if they bother to replace the interiors or not.
Yeah. Wow.
And whether they got the flatbed or the 24F model. The domestic first.
I mean, if the price is right, I don't know, guys. Like, does it make any sense when I can connect in San Francisco or Seattle?
Wait. You connect in San Francisco. What is your success rate there?
When I'm with you, very low.
I've never connected with you in San Francisco. Have
Yes,
I?
you did. Yes,
Oh, that's right.
Taipei.
Well, no, it sounds like you never did because you didn't get to the second flight.
To be fair, no. I was already there. I didn't connect.
Yeah, true. But you were there. I mean, that was the problem. If you hadn't been there,
LA, I will own. San Francisco, I'm not owning.
But I mean, would you fly across the Pacific via Anchorage?
For how much?
Yeah, I guess if the price is right, I'll be interested to see what their North American routes are. Like, where are they going?
They mentioned Texas in the last release.
Interesting.
So that'll be interesting. I mean, I don't know. I think that there's already a lot of capacity in that market, but it worked for Iceland Air. I think that I think that Iceland works because Iceland Air has way more destinations available on the European side with a shorter flight.
Yeah.
So they can do both local and connecting feed. Like at one point, the market was just one a day in and out, and then they started adding like a second and a third to some markets on the European side, and then in some of the shorter U.S. markets, we're able to add a second or a third. Where there was, like I did the daytime flight JFK to Iceland.
Yeah,
Reykjavik, right? And it landed at 11 p.m. in Iceland. It's like a 2 p.m. departure out of JFK. It was a great flight. Get downtown to your hotel around midnight, 1 a.m., fall asleep, wake up the next day, and like good to go. So I loved that. But also, like you can do that, but right, it sort of worked because they were able to have enough demand just going into Iceland as well. In theory, in the summer, Anchorage might support that, but you're not. Iceland Air has 24 destinations in Europe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on the mainland. I'm not sure unless they start doing crazy stuff into China, which from a regulatory perspective and a slots perspective would be insane unless they go to all secondary or tertiary cities. I'm not sure where you're going to get enough destinations that are within range of a 757 to Anchorage.
Well, and that's what I was looking at. Anchorage to Narita is 3,400 miles. Okay.
So you got another 1,000. You can get to the southern parts of Japan.
Okay. So you can get to the southern parts of Japan. So let's just look at Taipei. I'm going to look at Taipei.
No way.
No way, right?
I don't think so. I mean, check it, but
no, it's going to be too far.
Taipei's 4,600.
How far was Berlin to Newark that never made it?
39.
39, yeah. And then, I mean, I guess you could probably make Seoul.
Yeah.
But I think
that's part of the plan.
You can do Beijing.
Yeah, northern China.
There's no way you're going to get slots to Beijing. Beijing's a tier 1 city. Unless American never starts operating those China flights again, right? There's no slots to China from the U.S. to tier 1 cities in China available. So Beijing, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and there's a fourth.
I mean, you could start flying to the second tier cities, right? There's no one flying those, and the 757 would be the right size plane.
Like they might manage to do it with the secondary or tertiary cities, and tier 2 cities have some limitations, and then there's tier 3 cities. I forget what the tier 2 limitations are, but I think they're relatively open. It would have to be a lot of China traffic, I think, would be, and certainly in the next 6 months, I'm not sure what that's going to look like. I mean, no one is, but they're not going to be ready to really do this till next summer, so maybe it works.
But I mean, I'm still thinking like Beijing. I mean, I'm trying to think what secondary cities in China you could do because Beijing's at the limit, right? Like Beijing is right at 3,900 miles.
Where's like Tianjin or?
Let me see here. I mean, you could do Dailin or Harbin. Harbin you could probably do with no issue.
Yeah.
Because it's north of Korea. Maybe Qingdao, maybe Zhengzhou or Xi'an, and that's about as far as you could go. You might even be able to pull off Shanghai, maybe. But I think you're really limited to Japan, and South Korea. Maybe they'll start maybe they'll start Vladivostok.
I can see Alaska. I can see Russia from here.
I would take that flight.
Tianjin might work. It's only 39. It's just under 4,000. It could work, but
I would get my Russian visa if I could get Anchorage to Vladivostok. I would do that. Just saying. Yeah, it's fascinating to me. The whole concept is fascinating. Someone give me $1 billion and let me start an airline.
Okay.
Do you guys remember that game we used to play? The text-based game.
I was thinking about it the other day.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
The Airline Mogul or whatever.
Yeah. It was great. It's totally terrible about some of the stuff. But
like running a 747 Ford between JFK and Newark was profitable
because it went off the sheer number of passengers between the two.
Yeah,
which is hilarious. But yeah, what else we got? Let's see. We had a listener question. So Twitter listener Frequent Flyer asked us a question about gate assignments, and Seth, I think you had some feedback.
Yeah, so the gist of the question was, they were talking about a connection they had at JFK and on Delta, and how some of Delta is still out of the old T2, but most of Delta's operations in T4, and then sort of the broader question of like, when airlines are planning operations and gate assignments for planes, do they take into account who the connecting passengers are and what flights they're connecting between? And so the easy joke answer is, not when Steven or Steve is in Frankfurt. But it's a fair question. And I think the answer sort of is it depends, right? Like when you're in any given terminal, I joked earlier about my DCA connection. Like mine was a super easy connection because I didn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
At the same time, there were a whole lot of people on the coming out of I was in the A section, United Express A gates, coming out of there and like running to try to get to C to get an onward connection. And under my breath, I muttered, if you guys think you're making anything in less than 45 minutes, I got bad news for you. But, I think I was actually sort of reminded of the old Continental play at Newark, where they put their A gates were Chicago, Dallas, DC, Atlanta, and one other city now I'm blanking on.
It was just the 4.
Was it just the 4? It was 5 destinations said Midway and O'Hare, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so those 5 markets were all in the A gates because it was almost all local traffic. There was basically no connections at all, and it was easy to get people in and out. It's almost like, an executive terminal in some ways because they're all very much business markets, except they didn't do anything nice in the terminal to make it worthwhile. But that worked because that was a different version of taking into account where the connections are. But, I mean, do you guys have any other experiences with good or bad sort of systemic connection configurations?
Didn't they used to do United or Continental? Didn't they used to do something at IAH? Trying to remember. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I can't think of any others. I mean, I know that for Delta, right, at LAX, it's a cluster because you've got it spread over 2 terminals. There's no real rhyme or reason. There's, I guess, mainline and some. They have mainline at both, really, but some of it's regional traffic in the other terminal.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
The last time I did T2 at JFK, I remember seeing like some wide body international departures out of there, and I don't obviously have the numbers, but I would assume that those flights will have at least some connections on them. But it was peak transatlantic departure time, and there's not enough gates, so I guess you put the ones with fewer connections or lower revenue or whatever because those passengers got a worse experience over in T2.
I don't know if they even consider that. I mean, I know at least at Newark at one point, the gates were specific to the plane types. So
absolutely, there are some when Continental switched Express over to A, they also added a bunch of gates to that banjo.
Right, but like the certain gates at Newark, many gates at Newark could not handle a 757 or larger.
Right. And
that's why if you go now, you see certain gates which the gate physically exists, but the jetway is gone.
Because they needed more space.
Because they spaced out the other gates to be able to. The goal was to make sure a 7.5 can fit at every gate.
And if you put a wide body in, like a 777 could clearly block the adjacent gate if you're not careful.
Yeah. My understanding is a lot of this just gets spit out by a system without any real logic.
Well, so there is, I don't know about specifics for the connection stuff. I know for gate assignments and stuff, there is some logic. There's actually some really, really expensive software that those systems that spit it out take into account for sort of operations planning of which gate should have which type of plane at which time and how long is the plane going to be there and how likely is it to be on time and a lot of other things to try to make operations run smoothly. Because the other thing is there's not enough gates.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, right? Like if one flight's delayed, how much, what are the follow-on effects in which, if you block an adjacent gate with a wide body and then that wide body's delayed, you're not just blocking the one gate, you're actually blocking 2 now. So if you can put the wide body at a designated wide body gate and it only blocks itself, you've significantly reduced the impact in some ways. There's a lot of considerations like that those systems do make, but I think I know that those systems don't necessarily have real-time passenger connection details.
Yeah. And fuzz like at JFK, I'm trying to think if Delta really even thinks about any of that? Because I feel like they're so limited with gates at T2.
So at one point, and I would have bet it's still the case, all departures at JFK for Delta, the flight number either started with a 2 or a 4.
Mm-hmm.
And the flight numbers that started with a 2 departed from Terminal 2. And the flight numbers that started with a 4 departed from Terminal 4. It was a fancy little design they had.
Yeah. Smart IDs.
So it was, but that means that those gate assignments were planned out way in advance.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? You knew, if you knew this trick, and I don't know that it's still the case, it wouldn't be that hard to check, but I'm not going to do it while we're talking now. If you knew that, you could sort of go looking and figure out, okay, I do have to change terminals, or I probably am going to have to change terminals, or I probably don't.
Yeah.
Based on that. So that is a fun trick for a Delta, assuming it still works. I'd have to see.
I had no idea.
I always wondered about at Newark how they chose which ones went to B, like international arrivals for United.
All of the flight numbers that start with B.
I think it has to do with the order they come in, because
it's overfill and that's it.
Yes, it's overfill, and then I don't think they keep the C terminal hall open international arrivals as late as B. B's always open.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I think it's partly overflow, but it's also where it comes back to aircraft utilization also, because if the plane has to turn quickly, they need it in C. If it's at B and they have to tow it over, that adds like an hour.
Yeah, that's
so part of it comes down to where the aircraft is going next and how tightly it's scheduled.
The JFK thing for Delta no longer works, at least I'm assuming, because JFK San Diego is 350 and 338.
Yeah, they started flying out of Terminal 3, didn't you hear?
Yeah, I was about to say, unless the Worldport made it came back.
Hey, it's a hard stand. Don't worry about it.
Oh, man. Flybe is hiring again. I didn't know Flybe was flying again.
Emirates is hiring too. I heard Emirates was hiring too.
Yeah, and so is Southwest. Wants 5,000 employees this year and 8,000 more next year. I mean, all the airlines are hiring. The Flybe one is funny because they went bankrupt and lost all their planes, and shut down and gave back all their planes and leases and stuff, and now appear to be ready to restart. And so that's where it gets interesting.
Rising like a phoenix.
So, yeah. Although 2 of their planes are going to assuming it comes together, 2 of their planes are going to fly for Connect Airways, the Q400 startup out of Massachusetts that wants to be based in Toronto and copy Porter Air. And has a contract with American. We've talked about them before. They have a contract with American as a feeder.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then there's the American Airlines JetBlue lawsuit.
Department of Justice
don't understand anything of what's happening. Yeah.
Basically, the Department of Justice has written a lawsuit saying that there's no way that this is a legitimate deal because American Airlines has way too much power over JetBlue because it's giving JetBlue all these slots in New York. And if JetBlue raises fares or does anything American doesn't like, then American will just take its slots back and screw over JetBlue and screw over the rest of the traveling public. And it's impossible that they're going to collude on fares, and that there's a bunch of markets where they overlap where they really are reducing competition. But the airlines have said, yeah, but we gave those markets back, and actually we can't collude on fares. We can do scheduling and a few other and code sharing, but not fares apparently. And I'm not sure exactly how true that is, but and oh, by the way, like the slots thing is like at least a minimum of a year, and there's like all of the things that the DOJ is arguing seem to be the wrong things to claim, I think is what it comes down to. Like, the DOJ also said that yielding slots would not be enough. Like, there's no way that the 2 airlines could remediate the impact of this partnership on consumers through slot divestiture.
But then why they let it happen in the first place?
Well, so they never did. The DOJ never ruled on it, and the Department of Transportation also never ruled on it, but by not ruling allowed it to happen because the DOT has there's a specific time frame, and then if no response is given, it's considered approved. The time frame for the DOJ, I guess, is more fluid. It was never guaranteed, but here it is. I don't know. It's very, very strange to me. But I don't know.
Yeah, but why now? Like, what's happened that they are pursuing this now?
I think a couple things. One is Spirit has been screaming bloody murder, and Southwest to a lesser extent, filing DOT complaints and begging the Department of Transportation to reconsider it. The other part of it that I think it'll be real interesting to see how much impact it has is in June, the Biden administration put out a statement basically saying we are going to get more aggressive on mergers and not letting them happen. And so the big big railroad merger, was it BNSF and Canadian Northern?
Canadian National.
Canadian, okay, yeah. But Canada's north, so fine. Had a proposed merger, and the DOJ came out and said, "Yeah, we don't think that's going to work. We're going to be looking for a lot of concessions and whatever," and they called it off. Things like that. So and even what was the other one? There was something else where a similar sort of thing with airlines, where they were all talking about, "Oh no, it's the DOJ saying this, the DOJ saying this," and it was like, "Oh, it was the slots, the Southwest slots at Newark that Southwest gave back, and the FAA never reissued." And then a district court in DC said, "You kind of have to. Like, these are public utility goods. You sort of have to use them. Please do." And then the FAA put out a statement saying, "Well, in light of the court ruling and the presidential statement about competition, we're going to go ahead and have a conference and reissue these, have a competition and reissue these slots." So there's a lot of people saying that. And like, what's weird is the memo, in so much as it mentions airlines, talks about like refunding baggage fees if your bag doesn't arrive on time, which is something that's also in the works, and the comment period just closed on the DOT request for comment and blah, blah, blah. So it's all happening, but I don't know. It's very weird to me that, yes, why now? But also, like, do they actually think they're going to win given the way what they've argued, and like just demonstrably false in some areas and pretty soft in others?
Yeah.
And claiming like it's impossible for any compromise to be reached. Obviously, I would like to think that that's a negotiating position from which they will, find a compromise. But what do I know?
I will be interested to see how it pans out. I bet American isn't super worried. I don't know. It seems like it's too little, too late now to me for this. But that's just my opinion. So,
well, I mean, they certainly can still stop it.
Yeah.
So there's that. It does seem to have come very late in the game. Yeah. Right? We're now 18 months after the DOT let it happen. Yeah. More than that, the DOT let the concern expire at like in January of 2020.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right? No. January 2021. It was in the final days of the administration. Sorry, 21. So 8 months ago, not 18. Okay. My apologies. Yeah. That makes more sense. Because it was announced in mid 2020. That makes a lot more sense. But so could you argue that like they needed 16 months to figure out if it was a good idea or not?
Or did they just finally catch up with all the paperwork?
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing is like they sort of like there's this standard of HHI, and it's some guy's name or two people's hyphenated names, and index is what the I stands for. And it's like the measure of the impact of monopolistic behavior, and like it's a weird formula, whatever. I don't quite understand it, but they're like, this is the formula we would use to calculate such things, and didn't include mention of what the score would be in the lawsuit. So that seems like a kind of an important thing if you're going to argue it. Or I missed it when I read this suit, but it was a very weird filing. We'll see.
Yeah. Let's talk about Executive Club status extensions and benefit changes. I honestly had no idea this happened.
Yeah, if you have status and your tier point collection date ends between January and March 2022, you'll get another full year extension. So they're right. Executive Club is not calendar year; it's 12-month rolling cycle, and everybody's qualification date is different, or within a limited variety. But they're reducing tier points to qualify. On board, they're doing, or pre-flight, I should say, all silver and gold members, regardless of cabin of travel, get pre-flight dining at JFK, Boston, Chicago, and Dulles, which is nice. I actually really love the pre-flight dining as a benefit.
Yep, we talked about that before on this show. Yeah.
And that was one of the things I love flying BA transatlantic. You grab a quick meal. There's actually pretty good food in the JFK lounge, which is the only place I've done it. But and the Concorde room at Heathrow or JFK will be available to GGL Gold guest list, which is a step up from Gold, but not quite to Concorde room. Concorde room was like a yet another step above that in terms of tier points. Yep. Which is their version of EQMs. It's what's weird about it to me. They also announced a 6-month extension to all the vouchers and some other stuff, but also are still expiring out points from people's accounts. I just got the email telling me I have 2 months left, and then my 13,000 points are gone.
Wow.
And like on the one hand, sure, I can find I'm sure there's an online shopping portal that I can buy something stupid in. right, and spend $3 or whatever it is and extend the points.
But literally no one's traveling.
But literally no one's traveling, and even if I am, it seems very short-sighted to me for any airline loyalty program to be looking for an excuse to be like, oh, hey, listen, you're not engaged with the program, we're not interacting now. I'm going to go ahead and close your account out.
Yeah,
this seems like a bad time to be doing that, especially when on the other hand you're like, dear people who fly us a lot, we're desperate to still have you around. We really, 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 really want you to come back to us when you start traveling again. Look at all these benefits we have. But if you didn't fly us a ton, piss off.
Yep, well, that was very British of you.
It's also very compliant with the not getting an MA rating, TV MA rating on the podcast.
Yeah.
The word I wanted to use did not start with the letter P.
But I will say they've got this nifty little flight path feature on their website for Executive Club, which will show you all your flights in a timeline format.
Oh,
which is useful to me because
it's nifty.
Eventually, it'll be useful to you at some point in the future. Hopefully, if we ever travel again. Consistently. I was going to say, I think it's odd to me how some of the different airlines are kind of handling this. So Executive Club doing this. We have a mutual friend who is a gold guest list member. I'm sure he'll love this. I think he was traveling to Toronto recently on BA. I'm sure he was very happy about these changes. I think for people who fly BA a lot, this is great. This is good. But if then I look at United's tactic to get people to stick around or stay engaged, and it's spend a certain amount of money before November 30th and keep your status. Alaska's just extended their 50% bonus.
But also it's still expiring points.
Delta, I don't know what Delta's doing. I think they've extended status
and the rollover another year. They're pretty generous right now. They've extended status back in June or July.
And then American, I have no idea.
There's lots of ways you can buy your status again.
Yeah. So
it's very expensive.
Exactly. So it's okay. So it's expensive. So I don't know. It just seems to me, it seems like the airlines know that things aren't good and people aren't coming back in droves like they thought they would.
But I don't think in the U.S. the airlines are. I mean, you look at planes; they're all full. People are flying.
Yeah, but not of frequent flyers.
I would. There's a lot of people who are traveling for business.
And I mean, maybe in your route, not up here. It's all leisure all the time.
I know a ton of people flying for business right now. So I would argue, especially now that school's back in session and people are still getting on planes, I think there's more people on planes that are flying for business than not. And from an airline's perspective, why would they go out and cater to all the people who haven't gotten on a plane in the last 18 months when they have people paying to do it?
When you say more business travelers than not, what percentage of business travel do you think has come back?
I don't think that's a fair question because the number of flights is reduced. But I think if you look at Sunday flights, you look on Thursday flights, they're very full a week out. That's not leisure travel.
Yeah, because no one goes away for a long weekend. You're right.
No, they do. But
no, listen, I think I will agree that traffic is higher on traditional business travel days, right? Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Friday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday are absolutely the weaker days still. But I would also argue that Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday or Tuesday, Wednesday for a lot of people was actually business travel because you go more places in a week rather than spend a whole week somewhere. Saturday, not so much. Business travel by every metric is coming back, but is still smaller than the leisure travel segment from everything I've heard.
I'm not arguing that point at all. There's fewer flights now, so you can't really do a comparison to pre-pandemic times. But in the flights that I have taken during business days, I would say at least 50% of the people on there are traveling for business, if not more.
Interesting.
Okay. I still don't think that's a good excuse to be yeah, we're going to ignore everybody who we're going to cancel out all the loyalty program and start canceling out accounts. Canceling an account, because that's the other thing is British Airways and if you don't, if after 6 months after we take away all your points, you still don't have anything, we're closing your account. Closing the account of someone is a stupid way to track customer behavior. If I come back and now I have a different account, the data you've lost on me actually is really valuable. So, but putting that aside, telling someone yeah, you're right. It's been really hard lately. We understand, but it's been 2 years and you still haven't flown with us. We kind of don't want you to we're not worried if you come back to us as a customer anymore. Especially when most of the traffic right now, or for the last year and a half, has been less about loyalty program and more about they had a nonstop flight at a decent price where I was going. I think that's a terrible business decision, and I would love to hear a loyalty program manager come on and tell me why it's a good idea to cancel out accounts right now.
I wouldn't say canceling accounts ever makes sense, but
or canceling out, zeroing out balances.
And I wouldn't say that makes sense, but letting people's status lapse, to what Steven's point was, particularly in the U.S., way too many people had status before the pandemic, and the airlines couldn't deliver on benefits at any of the tiers. This is a way to reset that.
Foz just wants more benefits. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm glad you understand that.
I say I got my A+ seat every time I wanted it on United. I think I got my benefits right.
Let's talk about Built. They added some CC bonus categories.
Yeah. So you remember we talked. Foz and I talked with Dave Canty, who helped build that program. It's a loyalty program for paying rent, and you can pay with a credit card. And earn points for it, and then transfer them to a bunch of loyalty programs. They added a new hotel program. You can transfer to IHG now, in addition to, I think Hyatt was the one they started with. And one of the things we talked about when we were going over the program when it launched with Dave was sort of the credit card earn rates and what the options were. And it was basically one-to-one earning on almost everything, except rent, ironically. And rent was a variable earning rate depending on how much other stuff you bought with the card. And one of the challenges there was because I could get 1 point per dollar on, everything. Would I move my primary spend over to that card to get more points on my rent spend, knowing that I could just get better bonuses on travel or dining or whatever else through the other cards I already had?
Mm-hmm.
And they've now added, I think it's 3 points for travel, 2 points for groceries kind of thing. It's something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they have added some bonus spend categories on the credit card to try to address that issue.
Oh, so that's nice. That's nice.
A little more compelling.
Yeah, exactly.
And, programs take time to evolve and whatever. I'm a little surprised that wasn't baked in when it started, especially because I know Dave and Richard Kerr, who's been working with them, and a few other folks, sort of know the value of those bonus categories. But I guess it was not quite firm enough, a bit of data that they just weren't ready to get those in place when they were ready to launch one or the other.
Yeah.
So. But I am pleased to see that being added in.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes it more attractive for people looking at Built as a potential, if they're renters.
Yeah.
It's a more compelling option now, for sure. Well, gentlemen, I think that's a show. We've got a couple of bonus topics, including South African Airways back from the dead, and BA doing some short haul out of random airports.
Not anymore.
Not the time.
So and that's for our Patreon subscribers. If you stick around, you'll hear those stories.
Including for folks who joined us as Patreon supporters recently: Jason, Patrick, Jeb, and Alex. Thank you all very much.
Thank you
very much.
And so until next time, you can find us on Twitter at DotsLines, morelines.com. Leave a comment, ask a question, whatever you want to do. You can tweet us. Until next time, happy travels.
Take care.
Bye-bye.